Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, October 16th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. And we begin with breaking developments on COVID-19. New concern over the rise in cases prompting county health officials to, quote, sound the alarm. They urged San Diegans to refrain from getting together in groups and encouraged businesses to allow more teleworking. Today, 311 new cases were reported. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher says a number too high could put us on the path to business restrictions once again.
We're very concerned, which is why we're here today. It's gone from a very modest gradual increase to a higher jump. And again, when you're right on the precipice, when you're barely making it in each tier each week, even what seems like modest increases can be enough to tip you over.
The state adjusts our case rate each week based on testing volume. That assessment comes out on Tuesday, and officials expect us to stay in the current red tier 2. But they are concerned about future weeks. Despite having more confirmed cases of COVID-19 among its student population than any local university, neighbors in the college area say students are still having big parties with no physical distancing and no masks. KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us what the university is doing about it.
The homes in this neighborhood look like those in middle-class communities across San Diego County, but these homes are in what's called the college area. College as in San Diego State University. Some of these homes are rented out to students. They're known as mini dorms, and lately some students have been flouting health regulations, holding large, loud parties where people are jammed into relatively small spaces.
We just kind of think that it's really irresponsible and ignorant of students to do that.
Sophomore Esther Sui wrote KPBS a few weeks ago to complain about San Diego State's handling of the COVID cases among the student population. Since then, she says the university has been doing a better job. In fact, after an initial outbreak once the fall semester started, the university says it's had several days with no new cases over the last few weeks. And since limited in-person classes began on Monday, they report no spikes and no cases at all connected with those in-person classes.
I have in-person labs now, so it's just kind of something to be worried about when you know that you don't know who might have COVID and not even know it because they're going to these parties.
We asked the university for a reaction to the issue of neighborhood parties. They would not provide anyone to go on camera so that we could ask direct questions. Instead, they issued a statement reiterating that they now have jurisdictions to enforce health regulations against students off campus. The statement also says, in part, that since late August, the school has issued more than 900 notices of alleged violations of student code of conduct policies, and that 110 of those were hand-delivered community notices to residences in the college area. The university contracts with elite security to keep an eye on the neighborhood surrounding the school. If they come upon a party, they call San Diego police. As for Esther Sui, she says those parties, they're still happening.
I've been hearing a lot of some of the parties that have been going on, maybe not the house parties, but like in the little apartment complexes. It's been pretty loud outside. It's really frustrating. And at this point, I feel like there's not a lot that we can do because, you know, those people, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing regardless of what we say.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
Teachers in the Vista Unified School District say they feel the district's reopening plan is putting them and their students in danger. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne explains.
Teachers and parents rallied before the board meeting.
So I am coming back to the classroom, even though I requested to stay home and teach virtually, and putting myself at risk because that's what my job is asking me to do. And I am happy to do it when we are safe.
Vista Unified School District plans to proceed with in-person learning for all grade levels starting Tuesday, October 20th. Parents and teachers were given the option to choose between the classic in-person learning or virtual learning. The district says a robust set of health and safety measures would be taken with the classic in-person learning model. But Madison Middle School teacher Mary Moffitt says not enough safety arrangements have been made to ensure the safety of students and teachers for in-person learning.
We have 34 students coming back to a portable out on our campus with HVAC systems that are ancient, with inadequate airflow and inadequate social distancing.
Several teachers from schools throughout Vista shared pictures with us of the safety materials they were provided to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Roosevelt Middle School teacher Craig Parrott says the sink pictured is expected to be used by 200 students between classes. He says teachers were given cloth masks, rags, and a cleaner to sanitize 38 desks between classes. Parrott says that's not feasible within 4 minutes passing time between classes. Plexiglass barriers were not provided, and instead teachers received PVC pipes and plastic liner to serve as protection. During last night's board meeting, Superintendent Matt Doyle said an investment has been made in personal protective equipment.
We spent millions of dollars on personal protective equipment, masks, face shields. Some people mentioned the dividers, the plexiglass dividers, and other things.
Jennifer Starrett has 2 children in the Vista School District. She says she chose the classic in-person learning model because she thought better safety measures would be taken. She is now on a wait list to pull her kids from in-person learning to virtual.
Our district is one of the few, if not the only one in the entire county, that is doing a full 5-day-a-week, full 6+ hours, full max class size.
KPBS requested an interview or statement with the Vista Unified School District, but none was provided. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
A major flip-flop today. The Trump administration reversed its decision, now saying it will help pay for the devastation caused by wildfires across California. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says that includes the Valley Fire in East County.
The Valley Fire burned 16,000 acres near Alpine last month, destroying at least 30 homes. But when the state of California requested millions in relief for that fire and about half a dozen others, FEMA and the federal government said their ask was not supported by relevant data. The Valley Fire burned within the 50th Congressional District, which currently has no representation on Capitol Hill. Republican candidate Darrell Issa says he leveraged his contacts inside the Trump administration and spoke directly with the president about reversing the decision.
If the 50th were not entitled to these, to this relief, it wouldn't be entitled. But I felt very strongly that they were entitled and that it was more a clerical mistake than anything else. And we want to be consistent in providing, relief here as we would anywhere else.
His Democratic opponent, Amar Camp-Najjar, lives in Jamul and was evacuated during the Valley Fire. He says he was disappointed to see the Trump administration at first putting politics over people, but he says the president ultimately made the right move.
It was a fickle move. I mean, within moments, he went from one place to another, and I think it's really important that we have steady leadership when it comes to this issue of wildfire relief. I had to evacuate from my own home, and 17,000 acres and 30 homes later, our district is still reeling from the pain of the Valley Fire.
Newsom tweeted today that he spoke to the president personally and thanked him for acting quickly to provide the funds. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
With local coronavirus case rates rising, local health officials are pushing the state to consider other data points like hospital capacity to help loosen restrictions. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento looks into it in our ongoing series about the county's COVID data.
The sound of the ICU at Sharp Chula Vista Medical Center carries all the way to the elevator.
So our ICU looks very different.
Danisha Jenkins heads the unit. They recently added noisy but crucial negative pressure systems to every patient room.
Prior to COVID, we only had 3 negative pressure rooms in our intensive care units.
The suction system keeps contagions from seeping into the hallway.
Now we've converted every single room up here to negative pressure.
The sound earned it a nickname, the spaceship. It now allows the hospital to safely host COVID patients in any of its ICU beds. San Diego County closely tracks that resource to reveal any extra stress from the pandemic. Governor Gavin Newsom relies on a data-driven process that controls limitations statewide. But a county system uses 13 metrics to drive local decisions that could further restrict activities in San Diego. A KPBS review of the county's process revealed local government and healthcare leaders don't always agree on how to count crucial resources, like ICU beds.
Pretty much with every patient interaction, there's some clinician putting something in the computer.
Back in Jenkins's office, her computer screen shows a system that logs the status of every bed.
They're blocked for one reason or another. They're dirty. Tells us if it has a patient coming into it or going out of it.
But early in the pandemic, capacity got so tight they transferred patients to other Sharp hospitals. Nurses from UC San Diego even delivered baskets of snacks to keep up the Sharp team's energy.
The nursing community, especially during these times, is strong and powerful.
The county wants at least 20% of the region's ICU beds to be open, or it may consider new restrictions to limit community spread of the virus. The county tallies empty, clean beds as available, and that capacity hasn't dipped below 27%. But Jenkins says there's another, more realistic way to count beds.
And this is the number of staffed ICU beds that we have available.
Sharp's spaceship may have 40 unoccupied beds, but Jenkins says they may only have enough nurses for 30. That means what the county considers available may not always be ready to take patients right away.
If a hospital has 300 licensed beds, that doesn't mean at any given point they're staffed fully for 300 beds.
Dimitrios Alexio heads the region's hospital association. He says hospitals would have to add shifts and temporary workers to close the gap between open and staffed beds. But it is a familiar strategy.
So if we got to the point where we didn't have beds available, we would continue to work to find staff. It's what always happens.
The county wouldn't agree to an interview, but a spokeswoman says health officials don't focus on staffed beds because it will, quote, always look like the hospitals are almost out. She says the number, quote, doesn't accurately account for their ability to rapidly increase capacity and staff. At Sharp Chula Vista, the surge has subsided for now, but flu season is nearing and reminders of the influx that could come again are all around. Pictures from children calling them heroes hang at the nurses' station. Brown grocery bags of staff protective gear fills their former conference room.
Everyone's equipment that keeps them safe. It's kind of crazy looking in there.
The county's metrics also track safety gear to make sure hospitals aren't running out. Yet some hospitals don't think they tally enough items.
You guys doing okay?
But for Sharp Chula Vista, the biggest mark from COVID is the ache left from losing one of their own. Jenkins and lead ICU nurse Eloisa Salinas embraced as they remembered Sharp's longtime facilities manager.
I had known this person for a long time, and I know the family for a long time. And now it was the end of life for this person, and it was heartbreaking.
51-year-old Raul Romo, a new grandfather who painted his beard pink for breast cancer awareness and played Santa at Christmas, died at the hospital in May after contracting COVID.
The numbers are people, right? And some of them were our people.
Romo helped build the spaceship. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Measure A would raise $900 million for affordable housing in San Diego. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen takes a closer look at arguments on both sides.
At the corner of Twain and Fairmount Avenues in Grantville sit 79 apartments housing the formerly homeless. The complex, called Stella, opened in December of last year. Residents pay deeply subsidized rents and have on-site services to help them live healthier lives. Stephen Russell, president and CEO of the San Diego Housing Federation, says San Diego needs more of this, a lot more.
Well, we have been absolutely heartbroken over the fate of folks who are living in the streets of San Diego. We've seen what a terrible cost it is to them, to their health, to our common health, and to the quality of our neighborhoods. We believe that we have an opportunity now to resolve that.
Russell says the $900 million in bonds that Measure A would raise could fund construction of 7,500 affordable homes for the chronically homeless and those at risk of becoming homeless.
We want to create a safety net for seniors, veterans, people living with disabilities, and youth who are transitioning out of foster care so that they would not be at risk of homelessness. They're disproportionately homeless in terms of the populations as a whole.
Russell adds that the local money could be matched 3 to 4 times over with state and federal subsidies, which could work as a local stimulus program as the region recovers from the pandemic.
We believe that as a property tax, it spreads so thin over so many people that it's relatively modest, and that it really provides an opportunity for us to create a safety net that is so clearly lacking as we saw during this pandemic.
Measure A would be paid back with an increase to property taxes, and how much you pay depends on the assessed value of your home. For every $100,000, you'd pay about $3 extra in the first year. So say the county assesses your home's value at $600,000. In year one, you'd pay about an extra $1.50 per month. That would gradually increase to about $10.50 per month by the end of the decade. If you're a renter, some of those costs may be passed on to you.
You keep giving the bureaucracy more money to spend, they're never going to have any incentive to implement those reforms and regulations.
City Council member Scott Sherman is voting no on Measure A. He points out that with interest, the measure would cost $2.1 billion over 46 years. He says building affordable housing is too expensive and that the government should focus on lowering the cost of construction before raising taxes.
Politicians told you, oh, it's just a small little bit of tax. It won't amount to much. It's not that much out of your budget. Well, if you keep doing that time and time again, it finally adds up to where now it's almost half the cost of building housing in this city.
Sherman is referring to a 2015 study from Point Loma Nazarene University that found regulations account for up to 47% of the cost of housing in San Diego. With subsidized affordable housing, Sherman says the state should end the requirement to pay construction workers higher wages, called prevailing wage,
which by everybody's account ups the cost of those units by 20 to 25%. I'd much rather get that done without prevailing wage, save that 20%, and build more units with that money.
Measure A has been endorsed by the County Democratic Party, affordable housing builders, and organizations that serve the homeless. It also won support from the San Diego County Taxpayers Association, the Associated General Contractors San Diego, and the Building Industry Association of San Diego County. It's opposed by the County Republican Party, the San Diego Union Tribune editorial board, 3 city council members, and conservative radio host Carl DeMaio. Measure A needs a 2/3 majority from city voters to pass. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Voting in person is already underway at the county registrar's office, but as iNewsSource reporter Mary Plummer explains, there are changes you should know about.
If you're planning to vote in person this year, prepare yourself because a lot has changed. For one, your neighborhood polling location likely no longer exists. In San Diego County, during the March primary election, there were about 1,500 polling locations. For this election, there will be just 235. Those locations will be open October 31st to Election Day on November 3rd. Poll workers will be paid this year, not volunteers. Keep in mind that while you are assigned a location, technically you're allowed to cast a ballot anywhere in the county. And yes, you are advised to wear a mask, but you also won't be turned away from voting without one. Masks will be provided by the county, or poll workers can arrange for outside voting. If you have any questions, call the county at 858-565-5800. And remember, the deadline to register to vote and receive a mail ballot is October 19th. You can still register after that, but latecomers cast provisional ballots. Happy voting!
For a complete guide to all the election changes this year, go to iNewsSource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded, nonprofit partner of KPBS. A 3-day virtual music festival starts today. The goal? Raise money to keep music venues from closing. The Save Our Stages event is organized by the National Independent Venue Association and hosted by YouTube. Locally, Jason Mraz will perform online tomorrow at the Belly Up Tavern in Solana Beach. This week, we got tough news about the pandemic's impact on our local economy. SDSU's Mira Kopik has more in the Friday Business Report.
Sandag issued a report that is projecting that San Diego is going to lose over $12.4 billion in gross regional product. Now, this is kind of scary because what we're saying is that prior to the pandemic, San Diego was looking at roughly a 2% growth rate for 2020. Now they're suggesting it's going to be literally a 5% shrinkage of gross regional product, which is a 7-point shift. So there's over 170,000 jobs that are lost due to the pandemic and the shutdowns. It's middle to lower wage paying jobs. And so it's going to disproportionately affect minorities and women. And this really, especially with so many women being impacted because they're very heavy in retail, you're dealing with a lot of 2-income households who are now 1-income households. You're seeing a lot of families in San Diego potentially moving toward that scale where they will be financially in trouble and may need food assistance or economic assistance far above and beyond what's available today.
Hope you're having an amazing Friday and thanks for tuning in. I'm Marvin Gomez. Let's talk about your AccuWeather forecast for you here at KPBS. Gradual cooling will start happening as we head into the weekend, and we're starting to see more of that onshore flow returning along the coast in many areas this morning, dealing with that dense fog, and that will actually continue throughout the next couple of days. Perhaps some of that fog could even come as far inland as into some of the valleys. And that's going to be the case into next week as well. Not so much of a cooling trend for the deserts. I think we might not see any major changes perhaps until the middle of the upcoming work week. Now let's talk about San Diego County for tonight. Temperatures cooling down to 53 degrees in Oceanside. Across Ramona, we're going to see those lows near 53 degrees as well. Borrego Springs, you should be near 66 degrees for tonight. And looking at our Saturday, many locations still dealing with temperatures above average. Keep in mind that along the coast we will have some cooler temperatures compared to what we had for this Friday afternoon. The risk for fires continues, especially across some of the higher terrain in Northern California. And here's a quick look across San Diego County for our Saturday afternoon. Borrego Springs 102 degrees, looking at Ramona near 100, and San Diego still warm with a high near 86. On Sunday, we're still talking about the heat across inland areas and towards the Four Corners, but again, we're still receiving that onshore flow, which will continue to bring us that gradual cooling along the coast and eventually into the valleys as well. Here's the forecast along the coast: 85 degrees on Saturday, and Monday to start off the upcoming work week, temperatures only coming up to 77. In inland areas, mostly sunny sky. There really isn't any sign of rain across the region, but overall, we're going from the mid-90s on Saturday to the mid-80s into the start of the upcoming work week. Some of the higher terrain along the mountains, mostly sunny skies, 70s throughout the next couple of days, upper 60s for the middle of the upcoming work week. And for the deserts, again, triple digits, and perhaps only seeing that minor change to 99 degrees into Wednesday of the upcoming work week. Back to you.
Tomorrow, City Heights will commemorate an early Dia de los Muertos. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler has a preview.
Ermelinda Figueroa founded the City Heights Dia de los Muertos over 20 years ago as a way to help bring a part of her home country of Mexico into her grandson's classroom. It went from a classroom at Rosa Parks Elementary School to other surrounding schools to taking over a city block each year. It just kept growing, she says.
Creció. Más residentes, más personas de la comunidad se interesaron.
But this year, that growth posed a problem. Because of the pandemic, it's just not possible to safely have too many people in one space at the same time.
Pero este año nosotros pensamos que el día 17 para que, pues dicen que la pandemia no sabemos si va a crecer o va a bajar, y pues ahorita que está más o menos estable, pues una exhibición nada más.
So this year, she says, organizers are aiming to keep the size stable and supervised. They've devised a plan for Saturday's event, which is being held on a vacant lot on 41st and University Avenue, to allow people to visit altars and watch performances safely and at a distance. Attendees will be able to walk through the space in small groups to see the altars.
We're gonna maintain distance. We have an enter and an exit. We'll be checking masks, sanitizer, and we're inviting the whole community to come and see the exhibit that we're going to be having. We're going to have 19 altars from residents and organizations be putting up.
Mercado says with safety in mind, it's important that this year's event happened to keep families connected to those they're now separated from.
We're in the United States, but we don't want those traditions to die, so we kind of continue doing it. Maybe at the beginning when we started planning this, we were like maybe five altars and just make it the day. But then more people started adding to the list, and now we have 19 confirmed. So it's really important for my family, for my kids to know our traditions in Mexico.
Mercado says this year's remembrance has taken on special meaning during the ongoing pandemic.
It's a day to remember the people that passed away before and the people that passed away during 2020 COVID. So I think it's a learning experience and a great experience to visit the altars and maybe just like engage with the people that are setting them up. And maybe you're going through tough times, maybe they went through tough times, and maybe they can bring hope to their heart.
A community altar will be set up to let people bring their own pictures of loved ones they've lost. The celebration runs from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Attendance is free. Maxwell Van Adler, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike. We'll see. A great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.